And then they starting to ask questions about chemicals now, which they did earlier every year, like before, like in November, but now it's only now. So
Hmm.
yeah, and I'm Central Alberta, Three Hills,
Yep.
and yeah, I'm from originally from South Africa. I think Saturday it's gonna be 3 years that we are here. So I was there in agronomy and chemical business too. So for 20 years, and then met Steve LaRock here and came over here.
I'm glad you're here. I got a
Thanks.
lot of friends from South Africa. I lived overseas for a long time, and man, a lot of talented people leaving that country right now. And I'm glad we could get you.
Yeah, there's it's a, like they call it a brain drain, but yeah,
It
it's
is.
not a good place to be right now. So I'm happy
No,
I'm here. So
good. Yeah, me too. It's I'm going back now probably 10, 15 years, but I worked with a bunch of guys from a bunch of African guys from South Africa, and they came from farms, and they were talking about the changes going on at that time, and they were like, man, it's just not a great place to raise a family and run a business right now. We got to find the opportunity. So anyway, I'll get off that topic, but I understand where you're coming from, and I'm glad that
uh,
you're here. Talented
thank
people in my country.
yeah, we are. But well, we're really culture driven, and we've got our own type of culture and uh, a bit of our own humor and stuff. But
Yes,
yeah, it's growing here in South Africa too, with the South Africans between each other. So it's a good thing.
I used to braai with them on Friday nights, so that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That's Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is Friday.
That's right. Awesome.
So yeah,
Excellent. Thanks, Henri. And maybe I'll just ask one more. Ken Edwards, can you come off mute for a minute? And just
Yep.
again, what's cooking on with what's your geographic zone that you're working with folks, and how's that planning going for them?
I'm up here in the northeast of Sask and planning while everybody's away on holidays here this week. But I think the crop plan is more or less set. Fertilizer's mostly booked, and did a little new crop pricing there yesterday on canola. So, other than that, not much going on.
What did the canola price net out at?
About 14. I gotta look here. I think it's about 14.30, something like that.
That's not a bad place to start, hey?
Yeah, no, it's got to start somewhere, and that'll be hopefully that's the least we sell for.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's a good baseline, right? No,
yeah.
that's cool. Okay, well, we're about 5 minutes in. Again, there'll be people that hop in and out there, Keith. So what I'd like to do is just want to first off thank you very much for making the time to hop into our network call. And it's always our mission within iFarm Ag Group to empower farmers and those that service them and provide opportunities for them to mitigate costs, mitigate risk, optimize value and ROI and ROT, return on time, with gleaning all the information we can. And people are free to do what they want with it and stuff. But this opportunity came to iFarm in just the last little bit, and we've taken a look at it, and we think that it is worth exploring and providing, again, farmers a chance to take a look at what they can use as another leveraging tool, another tool in the toolbox to maybe get some better visibility on what the market's telling them, and maybe explore alternative suppliers that they may not be aware of and whatnot, just to see what's what. But with that, I'll just kind of turn it over to you, Keith, and what made you, if you don't even just start with what brought you to want to create ClearCost, and then we can just go from there, and a bit of your background too.
Yeah. Thanks for setting it up there. I'll give you a bit of my background and how I ended up doing this and ended up in Saskatchewan. It's another story. They're all interesting stories right now. So my family and my wife and I are originally from Niagara in Southern Ontario, and we went overseas to work together when we were really young, like 23. So that would have been 17 years ago. And my wife and I worked over in China for like 15 years. So about we were there for 10 together. I did a couple more, so about 13 in total. And I built a couple businesses out there. I built a corporate accounting practice and corporate financial advisory firm, and got really into the technology space because at that time there was a lot of investment in financial technology, and I just kind of really was gravitating towards it. Thought there was some really cool stuff going on, like using, I'll give you an example. This one's really kind of inspired me in a lot of ways, but some guys I worked with, there were publicly traded express highways on the stock exchange in Hong Kong for toll roads in China, and nobody knew how to value these things, right? And so they grabbed satellite data and started counting the cars coming off the highway going on, and they could just pick up what the toll road should be, what the revenue on the business should be. They'd front run the earnings reports, make a ton of money. They were doing so well at it, they went down to the bank and said, give us $300 million and we're going to take these things private and move them offshore and keep all the profit. And they did. So there's just like a lot of really innovative, cool stuff going on at the time using technology to get information on the market. And that's the key here, is that so many markets are just kind of gray, and it's not easy to determine the information, but there are sources out there, alternative ways of thinking about it. So that and a few other examples that I got involved with were really interesting to me. And I came back to Canada in 2020 because frankly, the foreign investment in China was drying up, and that was my core business. And country risk during COVID has changed everything, the whole profile of their economy. So came back and got called crazy because I went straight from Hong Kong to the Yukon, and ended up living up in the bush for a year up there and doing a gold mining project. That was kind of cool, but not a great place to raise a family. And we went to the Northwest Territories after that to do another large project for like a construction company that did highways and transmission towers and stuff. So I worked with them for a little while, helped them structure up some investment on the business. And again, just really wasn't happy with the community, didn't think we were going to raise our kids there. Just a lot of stuff that just didn't align with our values culturally. And so, we'd been gone so long, we didn't know where to settle. And we started thinking about it, talking about it, calling around, and we're like, man, it's probably in the prairies. Like, there's probably the right culture for us. There's the right economy for us. We might raise our kids in a place that we would be happy to. And so I looked around, tried to find some work around here, and ended up talking to Blair's and Lanigan that run ag retail out of there for 77 years. You guys are probably familiar with them. So they brought me in as their CFO. And they had just at that time started a joint venture with Federated Co-ops. Now, I didn't know anything about the co-op at that time. Never even shopped at one. Never been to Saskatchewan either, for that matter, when I came here. But I came down, got into this project, and I said, look, guys, we got a wholesaler and we got a retailer. Your information is the same. It's the same supply chain. Let's just take the data on both companies, put it together, figure out what we can build out of that. And so I built them a pricing tool for replacement cost, essentially. And what it allows the staff to do is, if Blair's is not holding a product at the time, but it's upstream in the supply chain through Federated, our software pulls that information, the freight cost, Blair's margin, adds it all together and gives you a real-time pricing quote for whatever products you want in the fertilizer space. We didn't do chem, we just did fert. And I brought in an American company, partnered with them, and put this onto mobile apps to do real-time work orders so that the staff could go out and execute work orders with real-time costing. I thought it would just give us an advantage in the market to always have a real price and not be, oh, I'll get back to you in 2 days when someone tells me or whatever. Just because I noticed the market's got a lot of gray areas. And so, I put this whole design together for them, and Fed Co-op was like, no, we don't invest in innovation. I was like, okay, no problem. And a friend of mine says to me, he goes, Keith, the market probably wants this kind of real-time information on fertilizer. Like, you need to go straight to market with this and get out of that ecosystem. Don't ask permission to innovate. Just take it right to the market and see what they have to say. So called up my friend who helped me design it, said, let's put this together. Let's see if we can build something that the market needs that gives them real-time information on fertilizer pricing at any given time. what's that going to look like? So we started spitballing about 2 years ago and kind of mapping this thing out. We built a version. We did not like it. We went back to the drawing board, restarted, and we launched it about 6 weeks ago. It's called ClearCost because we just want the cost to be clear to everybody. And first principle of the business is that we don't charge farms anything ever. This is meant to be a free tool with a value add, and we constantly try to evolve it and make it more valuable from feedback. We make our money off of the sellers who appreciate that we've got something that brings new customers together for them they can bid on. So that's kind of that was the idea of it, really, is like, let's just get good information. Let's make the market clear to people. Let's provide access to a broader network of sellers that maybe they don't know about. And on the sell side, let's bring a bunch of demand into one place and have you compete so that you can get a good price on this end, but these guys are happy because they're claiming market share. So there's like a trade-off of both guys get something if we put this efficient structure in there. Now, the challenge with our business is that we need to develop trust because we're new and we're effectively brokering deals kind of between unknown parties. And so we've got to put a really strict kind of set of operating parameters around this business where we only bring in quality buyers and sellers. And if people are abusing this software, they're not involved in it. It's kind of like a premium brand in a sense in that way. So we're just trying to, at this point, scale up both sides of the market and start to develop user trust on both sides. And yeah, that's how we ended up with this. It's an attempt to make the fertilizer market efficient, and it's in a market that I think we can all agree has been really inefficient since it came into place 75 years ago. So that's the story of ClearCost and my family and how we ended up here. I'm happy with what we've built, and I can show it to you guys, but I'll pause for a minute and take some questions, and then I can jump in and show you what we do.
So I'll start with one. What has been the initial feedback from suppliers? What are the fertilizer guys saying to you? And I'm not clear, like, you know, do you have any fuel exposure as well? What are they saying to you?
Great question. So I've been, for a year now, I've been out talking about this, and for the last 2 months, I've been showing it. And so for the first 10 months of the business, it was just conversation without any visuals, any walkthrough, any real product. So we didn't have the hugest uptake, but we did get like 5 first movers who were like, I like the idea, I'll try it. And we're not charging a subscription fee to them, it's a success fee. So they can look at the market and participate without a cost. Those first ones, there's no common thread between them. I couldn't figure out what it was that was like, the businesses were in different geographies, they had different age of the managers, different ownership structures, and nothing made sense across it. The only commonality was that they could see what we were talking about and said, I'd rather be there first than playing catch up later. That was the only thing that they shared in common. And so those guys that are hopped on, they've been active since day one with us on this, and we've since tripled the amount of suppliers in the last month and a half. So showing the products really brought more people in. They understand how to use it. Now, what have they said? How am I going to use it? Why am I interested? That's probably like, what do you want to know here? The economic incentive they have, right? So when the market's going up and they've taken a position, they've got that price appreciation. In those moments, they've all said, we want to capture that and close the deal off and just take our margin when we can. And this gets us exposure to a broader demand base, because paying guys in trucks to go anywhere beyond about 100 kilometers of your brick and mortar is not economically viable. It's not possible to cover all of 73 million acres with F-150s and 25-year-olds. So we bring it into the house for them and they can close deals that way. The other half is that when the market starts going down and their positions start to flip upside down on them, they want to liquidate quickly. So they dump essentially into our market to clear their positions. Those were the first group. They were like, that's it, we're going to use it that way. Then we started showing people the product, and a couple of them are like, you know what I want to do with this? He's like, excuse my language, I'm going to share it. It's early morning, I'll cuss once, but this is the quote. He said, I'm going to dump tons of my competitors' territory because I'm a greasy bastard. I was like, okay, you could use it for that too. We're not going to stop you, you know. And and then we've got some other ones that are really interesting too. So there's been some terminals that have reached out to us, and we've had some guys from the US too saying, hey, we'd love to be able to direct import. Well, we got to work out the tariff thing if it happens. And right now it's not in place. So there's been different types of sellers. It's not just retails coming forward. We've had guys from we've got a couple manufacturers on here too, for that matter. They've said to us, look, we just want to be able to sell this in the territory that we don't have our dealers, our core customers. So just identify geographies. We'll share it with you. Put a filter on for us so we know we can sell direct to farm out of the factory because we're not jeopardizing our relationship. So there's some of that activity. There's some arbitrage activity. Guys have kind of said, hey, I'd love to be able to import the nutrient when they find my price. They'll tank it down and close my margin off on me. And so some of those guys are saying, hey, I'd like to be able to do a quick 48-hour turnaround on a product coming in from Vietnam or Morocco or something like that, because they'll handle the trade from point of origin all the way up the river and on the trains and trucks. So a lot of different guys have come out of the woodwork on this thing with different strategies that we didn't see coming. And I think it just makes a more robust market on the sell side. That's the support. There's also been at least 60% of the market has said, no way, man. I got run out of Sturgeon County by a guy one time. He's like, don't come back. I don't want to see you. This business. He's like, I capture my margin on relationships, and I don't want anybody knowing the price outside of what I give them. I was like, well, that's kind of what we do. That's our core business, right? So there's been some pushback and resistance. And we've had people say to us, look, like, we'll never go this way because we don't want to be transactional on this. We want to be a value-added service in some ways. And that's true. There's business models for that. And what we've landed on is that talking to sellers, talking to farms, we think probably about half of the market is really fixed on a relationship supply chain, and they're not going to go outside of it. And about half of it is looking at it going, let me see what's out there. And we service that half. And so when we talk to sellers, I always say the same thing. Like, listen, I don't care to disrupt your core business. I'm not here to touch your relationship business, but I can bring you the other half of the market that's not looking for that. They're looking for, product when it's available, get a good price, have a reliable freight service, because they've probably got blending on site. They've got their own storage. They got their own guys. Like, there's not as much service requirement around that product. So, yeah, we service that part of the business, and sellers have, like I said, mixed reviews, but I will say quickly gathering some steam right now. And people started calling me about 3 weeks ago. That's where I thought the business might have reached an important tipping point. I wasn't doing cold calls. All of a sudden I was getting cold called, and I like that. That was great. So that's been the reception on the sell side. I think they like it. The ones who want to use it are really active on here. Quote goes up, 5 minutes later, price goes out. So there's some guys who really want to use this and grab market share.
Yeah, excellent. Good. Well, thank you. You handle that great. Why don't we go ahead and just show what's what? And I know there'll be lots of, I've got other questions, but I'm thinking that the app will probably address a lot of that as we roll through this. And guys, again, it's kind of open. So if you happen to have something catches your eye or you don't want to miss a moment of a question, just chip in or put your hand up and we'll deal with it right away. Or you can text me about something if you want me to handle it from my end. So, hey, Brett.
One quick question. Good morning, Keith.
Morning.
Do you have a breakdown yet? I know it's early days, but of guys that have asked for blends versus guys that are asking for a straight product?
That's a great question. So as of now, we haven't had a single blend request. We've had all straight product requests.
I didn't think so. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a blend function on here, and I'll show you it. And we thought that would be helpful because there are, on our software, what happens is a seller can toggle the blend feature for each of their locations. So if they get a blend request, it only goes through that location where it's possible to blend it. But yeah, like the other thing that we do is that sellers can pin their terminal positions where they buy their fertilizer from as a GPS point. And what happens here is that now, let's say they got 6-7 locations in a 300-kilometer radius, and what happens is now they start pinning terminals in Brandon and Medicine Hat and Colvat and Redwater And now, so when they get a request, it starts to use that geographic connection from that location to the farm, and it becomes a shorter route. So they're able to go out and make sales that are profitable using their terminal positions and going direct to farm. And so the guys that take positions rather than back to backing, they've got this kind of extra advantage in the market. Okay, let me show you the mobile app here. Let's see.
I guess on that note that you just talked about, that would let sales guys know where their backhauls are and stuff too, right?
That's right. That was exactly what some of them said to us. They're like,
Yeah,
this is good for our freight business too, because we know
Yeah.
where we can get efficiency on our trucks. There's also, we looked really at going into freight further, and a lot of our sellers, they were like, you don't need to do that for us. We've got the trucks, and if we don't, we've got the third-party truckers that we bring in and we trust. So don't worry about organizing it for us. That's our core business, essentially. They're like, just bring demand and bring quality farms to the market, and we'll be here for it. So that's been the freight discussion. So let me see if I've got the right one here. There we go. Can everyone see? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. This is our mobile app. It's on Android and it's on Apple. And this is the landing page that everybody comes to. It's just a product list of fertilizers. Dean asked about fuel. Yeah, we do have fuel on here. We've got the dyed diesel and gas, winter and summer. But we've only got 2 guys selling fuel right now, one in South Saskatchewan and one in North Alberta. So we don't have great geographic coverage on fuel at the moment. We're trying to build it out, but fuel guys are different than FERT guys. Like, I kind of learned FERT from the Blairs and know that industry, and then I got talking about fuel, and it's a different game. I'm trying to figure that out a bit, and we'll get some more, I think, over time. But anyway, here's how it works. It's really meant to be simple. The instructions to my engineers were, a guy needs to be able to use this with dirty fingers with one hand driving a combine. And so that's why we went back to the drawing board and made it simpler the next time. So let's do a simple order map. A lot of map orders coming through right now. Put 44 tons on that. Now here's question came up from Brett about blending. This is how you would blend here. You just add a second product from the list and set the amount to it. But we'll go back to a straight for simplicity. We got some smaller micronutrients in here that are bagged, so you can switch between a bagged or bulk order. And then it goes up to the basket right now. And then from there, you got to add kind of the contractual terms you're looking for, your take dates and your delivery requirements. So if we're putting it in here, I'm just going to send this as a trial request. I've got a robot supplier that responds to these on the back. They're not real numbers. They're just, go ahead, Brett.
sorry, just because you got there, does that send as trial? Is that defaulted at the start and you have to turn it off when you're ready to do an actual one?
Yeah, so the very first order that you put in through here is always set up hard-coded to be a trial, and you'll see the box checked and you'll see this name trial quote request at the top. That's set up. The reason that's set up that way is that it gives you a chance to dry run the product and understand what it does each step of the way, because this could be potentially a large value order, and we don't want to just going cold through it without knowing what's next. So we are going to release a video next month that shows the full kind of walkthrough of this. We got a guy building one out for us, but I'll tell you the truth. What's happening now is we're simplifying this process a little further and removing the basket, so it goes straight from the product screen to the one you see right here. And we just something we had to adjust to make it a little more fit the market a bit better. But so yeah, trials are your first one, and if you want to do it without, just untick the box like that. Then you just got to give it a title. We'll just call this one test, and got to pick your take dates. Now I'm going to obviously put some weird ones in here today, tomorrow. So this is like a spot order. Most of this stuff is forward dated. Farm location, I've got one pinned in here, but you can add just by putting your quarter section in and give it, call it your bin yard or whatever. Like that, what happens with the software is we take the GPS coordinates of your farm and we take the GPS coordinates of the seller's locations and we give them a distance estimate for delivered orders. And if you pick pickup over here, we give you the distance estimate. And it's calculated using a software that uses truck routing. So we account for road bands and we account for the weight requirements on the roads. You know, it's the correct distance for the route. Okay, so let's see. I've got, I'm going to do a test request for some map today, tomorrow, send it out. Okay. Oh, I want to get a test though. Sorry, because this will give me my response. Send it back out. It's a trial. Confirm my details. I'm picking it up. It's Watrous Farm, although that's more closer to Cadillac, I think. Trial quote request, map, 44 tons bulk. Okay, send it out. Good to go. Now the robot, it'll cut back to me in about 60 seconds. Well, exactly 60 seconds with a quote request. But I'll switch over right now and show you the other side that the sellers see. This is, I think, probably an important piece. So here's my demo environment. So this is not the real one. This is where my engineers are like testing our product and making it a bit better. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so what happens on this end is we end up getting a main board of quote requests right here. Now this is not the actual, oh, I got to log back in. I've been inactive. Okay, quotations. So on the main board here, these things pop up in real time and the sellers get a ping on their email. And in next week, they get a mobile app so they can actually, they've said to us, we want mobile so we can respond while we're driving too. And so they're going to get a version of the app as well where they can just back and forth trade FERT on the phone. So what happens is a quote comes up like this and you'd have information about the product, ATS. It is an order, straight order for 77 metric tons. It's 130 kilometer delivery distance. And obviously no one's selling ATS for 55 bucks a ton, but these are just my guys. Good question, Brett. Today, no, because my engineers have taken down my application and they're reconfiguring the new upgrades that are being released tomorrow. So at the moment, I don't have a full connection from my mobile to my demo supplier account. Just the process of software building. So this one's not the one I sent in. This is just another. So what they would respond with is they enter a price per ton, a freight rate for the 130 kilometers that they're delivering it. And importantly, here's the two critical details: the expiry date for the quote. So it's only good until then. When that minute hits, it gets pulled off the system and nobody can contract using those terms. And a balanced due date. And this gets into the cash flow, which I'll talk about next. So let me pause there for a moment. You might be drinking from the fire hose, so I'll stop and you guys ask me some questions if you have any, and then I'll show you the other side, how it comes back to you. I can keep going then?
I just want to ask one thing. Sorry, you've got your mobile app coming up on your laptop here. Is there a way for us to show that as well if we're sitting with somebody?
Yeah, so I use something called, what's it called? Phone Link. It's an app that's on your Windows, or you can use Connect, which is another one that you can download.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and so for both of those, you just cast it like a Bluetooth to your computer screen, essentially. Okay, so if I switch back here now, I've got my quote request from my robot supplier for my ATS order. So here it pinged in. I got a notification right here on my phone. New quote received against my request. Here's the information. Pops up right here. So I've got a 44-ton order priced at $11.80 per ton. And it expires on the 20th at 6 p.m. So it's good for today only.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I want to act on that, I can move through. Now, what will happen is you'll get a number of quote responses here from each of the sellers, and you can compare them. So if I like this one and I want to go through, I go into the contracting process. Oh, I haven't entered my details because I just, so this is the important part. You're contracting your business, right? So you got to provide your business information onto the contract, and we've got to also connect you as an individual to the business. So you got to prove us that you own the business or you operate the business and have the permission to do it. I won't spare you that trouble right now. But what happens next, and I'll stop presenting here and just discuss this part, that gets into the contracting and the commercial, the actual commercial functions. So the software kind of, as far as like what we do, that's the software convenience part kind of stops there. And then we have 2 other steps. So what's being released tomorrow, this is why I've kind of limited on my use of the program today, is that we're integrating our payments and we're integrating a couple other features, but payments is the next step in this process. So we've got bank account integration coming tomorrow through a provider that does the same, like the service, like where you pay your taxes and you connect your bank account and pay it that way. It's the same company. So what happens to do contracting? This is where our business model is a little unique, and I need to really make sure that everyone understands what happens here. So at the bid ask activity on this app, both parties are blind to each other. And the reason for that on the sell side is that guys would not do this if they were giving away their pricing and their name. And they told us that from the start. They're like, I'll do it if I'm anonymous because I don't want people knowing I'm tanking the market or I'm taking their territory or whatever it might be. So we had to protect the sellers in that case. So they're bidding blind on your ask. And then we also, for buyers, we heard a little bit about, well, I don't necessarily want to have a bunch of guys I don't know with F-150s coming down my truck lane now that they've got my information and they know I want to buy ATS next month. So little bit of protection on both sides, but also protecting our business interest in this as well. So what happens in the next process is that if you go into contract, the contract is locked in and initiated, but it's not completed at that stage. What has to happen is the buyer, in your case, the farm's got to make a down payment into the trust account to secure the contract. Once that down payment is made to the trust account, we confirm it with both for the bank, and we send the contract out by DocuSign in the app. You just pop with your thumb through there, and it's executed on the contract. At that time, you have the counterparty, their location, the ownership, the name, the contact number, everything you would have in a normal fertilizer contract with your counterparty. They do the same, they get the same information, you guys are then settled. And then this gets back to balance due date, which is the other piece of information I showed you that the seller enters. That's when the other 75% of the payment is due. So you'll be able to compare your quotes based on when the money is due as well too, which is an important element to your cost to your business. And so that's the final steps of this. As of today, if you do it, you got to put your bank transfer through just using online banking, and the information comes up and in the app that you need to use. But tomorrow we'll get it all integrated in nicely. We've also got credit cards coming in next month. We're looking at doing direct lending as well. Our strategy on that one is still kind of in the works. We're working with the bank to try and figure out what that looks like, but we want to be able to undercut FCC on the interest rate and give it to the farm specifically, and then be able to deploy it to all the different buyers that are vetted through here. But it's a little complicated, so we're still working on that one. But yeah, that's effectively what it does. It's just meant to be a very simple, find the price, find the supply, be able to contract, make your payment. The piece that's different is that we put a trust account between the buyer and seller. And so once they, on the back end of the order, once they release your delivery, they'll enter that into the software, give the driver's name, contact number, and the dispatch time. And that way okay, it's dispatched at 2 o'clock, it's got to go 100 kilometers, here's the driver's number, and you'll be able to coordinate that last mile with them. We are thinking about integrating that further in the software, but at the moment, that's where it's at. So if there's any kind of like peculiarities at your bin yard, like enter from the west side because the north is muddy right now or something like that, you got to get those details out to the driver on the last mile. And then you can review the driver as well once it's done. So you'll get a little ping. You just got to put a yep, received, driver review, product review, and we're going to start building out a star system for sellers and products so that even though you're bidding blind on things, you're going to see what's the rating of other people in the system. How do they view this seller? How do they view their product? So you get a kind of a market assessment real time of the stuff that's in there. That's what we do.
Hey, Wilson. Wilson's got a question.
Yeah,
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, Wilson. Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering why the trust account, like, with other retails or whatever, just a contract seems to be sufficient to like,
Hey.
buy something.
Yeah. So the trust account came because the sellers don't know who they're selling to, and they wanted to know that they were committed to the contract. So when we worked with them, they said, if they're putting 25 down, they're really unlikely to walk away from this. But if they're putting nothing down and the price drops against them, now I've got a bunch of unfulfilled contracts on my end. So we're trying to find a way to give both sides of the market a security on the terms they've negotiated. This is where we landed with it.
Okay, well, are you going to make them put 25% in too, or whatever, in case they try to walk away? But I guess you probably vet the sellers in that way.
Yeah, so that gets into what happens if a party reneges, right? So we spent months trying to figure this one out, talking to people and getting it drafted. I can tell you right now, in the scenario where a buyer reneges and he's put down 25%, he says, I'm not paying the rest, I'm walking. He doesn't get a refund on that. That goes to the seller, he has the product. And the scenario where the seller reneges, you get the full refund, we'll help you source replacement product, and they're kicked out of the system that day. So we've got a really firm kind of quality control on that, and they've all agreed to those terms. That is the risk. That's the risk of our business, like managing these contracts, is that will a party walk away midway through it? And so we've tried to put a system in place where both guys could feel secure in the transaction that's happening. And we're going to try and establish our business as like the trusted broker intermediary in that case. Yeah, thoughts on that? Like this is the peculiar part of our business. So I would love to hear what you guys think about it.
Yeah, the trust part, is that in your guys' account, or it's in like a separate account that can't be used, or what?
It's a separate account. We manage it, but we can't use it. It's at RBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we've got.
There was just a company, a grain broker that, I can't remember what the name was, but they had a bunch of, they weren't really a broker. They were taking payment and then paying the buyer or the seller or whatever. And they kind of got in trouble that way. But
they absconded, or they took off with money that wasn't theirs.
Yeah, in the end, people egg view, or
Okay.
do you know the one I'm talking about, Dean?
Yeah, that was just not too long ago. Eh?
Yeah, so just want to make sure this trust money is not like, because what they did, they kind of used it, I think, in the meantime, but.
Oh, I see. They were using it as operating capital loans. That's dodgy. No, we be perfectly honest with you. In order for us to put the credit card and banking integration in, both of those companies needed to have confirmation from RBC about what we could and couldn't do on that account. And the number one thing is, can't touch it, can't borrow it. It can only be used for the contracted purpose in there. And as we get into credit cards, because we're doing that discussion right now, it becomes even more complicated. We actually have to make that account into a more evolved form of bank account that's got like a special security restriction on it as well, where we have to get a third-party confirmation to move money in and out of it. So as we move forward, this becomes even more progressively secured than it is right now. Yeah, that's the piece of it that's like, where's the money, what's happening to it? that's our starting point, but I think we only become more and more secure as we integrate more third-party technologies into it. We also had an offer from one of them to actually manage that account, and that may end up being the case, just so that we remove all liability from the business and all control over that piece. But we got to work out those terms with them.
Yeah, right on. So then how would you guys get paid? You take like something on every transaction kind of thing?
Yeah, we take 2 points off the gross,
Yeah.
and we charge it to the seller.
Oh, okay. Right on. Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. This was the hard part. Honestly, the tech was actually easier. It's like, let's make sure this really fits into the industry, because guys been doing the same thing for 75 years, and we're coming in and just tweaking it. Like, we got to make sure it fits and it's comfortable for people. Yeah, so everything we can do to kind of increase trust around the operations of this business, that's like our kind of our core business model, right? So we got to vet buyers and sellers. We got to use really secure banking. We got to use really secure payment settlement companies. So the ones we're using like are pretty serious businesses. For credit cards, just to give you a bit of an idea on that one, we talked to all these different providers about credit card settlement. And then we were like, man, these guys, none of them are offering what we need. What's the issue? And so we ended up finding out that they're actually all just applications sitting on the same technology. There's one company in the world, in North America, that does all credit card transactions. Monera sits on them, Stripe sits on top of them, Phoenix. Every one of these companies uses the same guardrails, essentially. So we called the guardrail company. We're like, build us something unique. And they're like, yeah, we'll do that for you. This is really simple. You're just trading fertilizer with farms and sellers. Sure, we got you. And so we've been kind of talking with them for about 3 weeks now to get this confirmed. We know what we can do technologically. Their market cap is 900 billion. They're an enormous private company. And they're the ones that have offered on the credit card transactions to actually take the liability of that and trade and manage the trust account. So we're still working that out if that's going to be the case, but anything that improves the security around those flows to us is important.
Right on.
Good question.
Yeah,
Wilson.
it's a good idea. I like that that idea of you should do it with grain contracts too. Like I hate targets. Everyone wants you to set a target and then you can't compete. No, they're not competing after that. It's like you know what I mean? Like
I do.
yeah.
So I'll give you a little tip on this business. When we patented our software, we patented what's called dynamic pricing, and that is the kind of taking all the variables that go into a price in a contract, using a software to take it across a huge geography and making it real time. And that's what our patents are for. And in the patent that we filed for fertilizer, fuel, chemicals, seed, and grain. So we do have a patent and our software can do all of that, but we haven't proven that people want to do this yet for fertilizer or fuel. And we got to prove to ourselves that, and the market, that this is the way guys want to do business. If we get there, believe me, our shareholders have said the same thing. They're like, do grain too. But grain's also got a lot of grading requirements that are a little bit different than fertilizer.
Yeah.
So it introduces a complexity about on-site grading and things like that. We can get there. We've been, I'll be honest, there are some technologies coming out that are kind of like handheld devices that can do a lot of this stuff. They're very new. We don't know if they're market proven yet, but we're watching them and talking to them. And if these technologies get to that state, we want to then take a look at, can we do grain at scale as well? It's on our radar. I mean, grain's attractive. You got to be honest. It's like, we can make those elevators pay us too. That would be wonderful.
Oh yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions.
Did you see that question in the?
I saw it pop up. Let me just, is a credit card purchases, do you need to deposit? And there'll be an extra charge for using card. Okay, so this is a great question. For the credit card purchase, it would be, you'd use it for the down payment on the order as well. Same like you would do a bank transfer, just a different method. Yeah, there's a fee to it, but we're charging the sellers and passing it on to them. And here's why. I'll be honest with you. They pay 3% right now. The best we've heard from any of them is 2%. We only know one guy that was able to get 2%. We've got it down to 1.15. And that's because we skipped over all the middlemen and went straight down to the infrastructure. So we pay interchange plus 35 basis points. The banks and the credit card companies set the interchange rate at 0.8% for personal cards and 1.5 for corporate cards. And then this company that does the infrastructure puts 35 basis points on top of that. And we take nothing, no kickbacks. This is just about reducing the cost, because we're trying to convince fertilizer guys to take the credit card payments, because a lot of them will refuse it at this point in time and have told us, like, we don't do that anymore. We can't give you 3 points to Moneris or whatever on a FERT trade. So we've tried. That kind of gets back to the core of this business, which is, can we use and leverage technology to make the trades more efficient and secure? And so if we can reduce the credit card rate for a seller, he's going to be more likely to take it. If we can make security of transactions between blind counterparties a perfectly trusted transaction, well, then we can start expanding the scope of where you can buy from. I'll just tell you the truth. The guys that are bidding right now or putting quotes up to farms on our software, I've seen them do up to 700 kilometers out of their home location. So we're starting to see the thing we were hoping for, which is, could guys really extend their territory, and is there profit at that distance? Well, the answer is yes, if you're pulling from a terminal that's 100 kilometers from them, but you're 700 kilometers away. And so we started seeing some of the activity we're looking for. It's so early though. We're 6 weeks in and we're just trying to get this thing out there.
What happens if something goes not ideal and the guy has to reject a load and things like that? Like, where does ClearCost stop and start with their pieces of resolving a conflict of some sort?
Great question. Conflict resolution. This was the other piece of our legal expense last year to get this one mapped out. So if there's a dispute, let's say a guy delivers you an order of urea and it was out in the rain and it's all crusty and you can't take it. So in that scenario, or one like that, you refuse it. The seller doesn't get paid. And the dispute has to be resolved directly. And there's 3 options. So the money stays in the trust account until the dispute's resolved. Either the 2 parties come to a conclusion, share it with us. Okay, set, done, money moved, product replaced, whatever it is. Second, if they can't come to a conclusion, they can go to arbitrage. Third, if it goes to court. And so it'd be the same process that currently exists. The money's held in trust until the resolution's put in place, because the contract's not closed legally. We have to retain contracts for 2 years in case there are disputes. After 24 months, we delete them. The other thing, this is really important. It's not to do with the disputes, but with the data that we keep. We keep the transaction data on product, quantity, price, time, and location. And location is kind of a general provincial or quadrant of the province, not farm or user specific. So we don't keep anything on the 2 counterparties. We just keep the numbers from the trade. And the reason for that is that we're building a database of real-time transaction value, and we're going to share that for free back to farms. So when you log into the app and you want to know where the map market is, we're going to have it like a brokerage app where you can just go into a chart, pick your product, knows your geography already, and you get a recent daily history of real prices that have actually traded at for that product in your area. And so you'll be able to reference that at any time as a tool for free. That's why we keep that data. Sellers want to pay us for it too. That's another piece. So, we're trying to figure out what that looks like as a revenue stream on their end.
That's really powerful, which is, again, that whole transparency thing. It's lots of smoke and mirrors and lots of, my previous company I worked with, it was, that was one of their mantras, was to be transparent on, there's buddy deals and there's bigger farm deals and all this other stuff. All this here it's agnostic. it'll just be, it is what it is, right? So I think that's very attractive to me, that it empowers knowledge to the local marketplace for the farmer to make calls on it and stuff, right? So, okay.
Thank you, Dean. That really gets back to to pull it full circle with where I started and saying, you know, like these guys that did this toll road play in Hong Kong and China, they were just getting information that the market should probably have already known, right? But they were first to it and they used it to their advantage and they captured a lot of return on it because they were first and they were informed. It's just that when we take that whole story and go through this ClearCost arc, on the other end of it, we provide back that information that gives you that same advantage. And you got to make purchases every year. So I want people to look at us as the source of truth in fertilizer and go, if I need to know the price, I know that these guys have the most current, timely, accurate information on the market. And they've also got a decent transaction, trustworthy method of doing it, bringing new supply. That's our business model. We're just trying to be a value add, a free value add to farms.
So with a farm, let's say I want 100, like whatever, 3 loads, so 130 tons of something, and of 46, say, and I put it out there. I want to see where the market's at. I'm not sure if today's the day I need to pull the trigger on that, but I want to absolutely do a fire test and see. I'm ready if the right deal's there. What would that scenario look like for a farmer that he's let's say 50-50, I'm going to commit, but I just want to see where things are at and I want to see how many bids I get back. What's the deal with that?
That's actually where the business is right now. And so in the first 6 weeks, that's what guys have been doing. I just want to see where the market's at and what I can get. And so we're getting guys putting up requests and quotes are coming in, but they haven't quite finished it in terms of transacting. I think they're looking for information, figuring out, realistically, I think guys will use this information and talk to their local sellers too and compare both sides of the information if they can get a good deal. So that's where we're at right now. That is free. You can do that. We just provide you the tool. Hopefully what happens is we earn your trust in this process as kind of the broker or dealer in this. And yeah, if you want to just use it to find information off the bat and get comfortable with it, we fully expect that.
Cool. Was there anything further on the app that you needed to provide detail on, or is it that simple?
It is that simple.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome.
The only thing I'd add is that before you actually contract, we've got to verify that so just to give you a picture on the back end, you are downloading an app on your personal phone, right? So it's going to be tied to your phone number, your ID, your name, but you're contracting in the name of a company. So you have to provide us the information that links those two. So like, for example, I'd have to provide, my profile report on ClearCost from the ISC that shows that I own ClearCost. I can contract on behalf of it. So you just got to upload a registration document to prove it. Otherwise, we can't let it go through, because what happens if some guy enters a farm that he doesn't have control over and he starts contracting on their behalf? That becomes a real loose thread in our system, right? So that's part of our vetting process, our verification. At present, we nobody's gone far enough through the process to make a transaction, so we've only done a dozen farms that verified users of the 100 that have downloaded so far. But you'll have to do that if you want to contract. And there is now, to get back to the app, a way to do that on mobile. Let me just show you real quick. So where's my phone? There it is. This is it's called KYC right now. Oops. It's not sharing screen. Just a sec. Sorry, an error occurred. I'm sorry, I got an error occurring here. It won't let me share. I'll describe it briefly, but on the 3-bar panel, the menu, there's a thing called KYC. Next week it'll be changed to verification. It's just an upload feature. So you can just take a picture, upload a doc, or if you have a PDF, upload it. The other thing I want to show you, but now I can't seem to share, is I'll try one more time here. No, I can't get it. We also we found a company out of the EU that does this big data soil moisture analysis, and what they are able to do is provide a 1 by 1 kilometer ground penetrating satellite, what would you say, data on soil moisture. And
Mhm.
we've embedded that in here as well. So if you look at the weather function on our app, if you've already downloaded it, you can go through and there'll be a soil moisture thing. Hit the little button that goes through. If you've got your farms in there or your location, you can see what the soil moisture is and the forward forecast for, I think it's 5 or 10 days of soil moisture. Now, ground truth this, you know, this again, this is it's some new stuff, but it's a kind of like what we're talking about, like can we use and leverage technology to provide good information to farms? So as far as like nitrogen decisions go and things like that, the soil moisture might be an important piece, and that's why we sought it out and found this company.
That's really interesting because there's a lot of iterations of, you know, pounding stakes in the, or whatever, probes in the ground and seeing what's there. And this here, what you're saying is, I don't know how unique it is, but I haven't heard a lot about that in terms of the ground penetration of moisture and how that would mirror or complement that other tech that guys are using. Because I think you're right on trend. If there's how proven is that tech?
That's a great question. So it's been around for a couple of years, and it was developed in Europe and primarily used there. So they have actually a smaller granularity of like 300 meter squares there. And in Canada and the US, they just started deploying it last year in the fall, and it's got a 1 by 1 kilometer radius. It's called, let me find the name of it. I think it's Meteo. It's basically a big data project. No, I have to find out from my, oh, there it is. No, I got to ask my engineers the name of it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's basically a big data, big nonprofit out of the UK, and they do basically, can we provide farms useful tools from big data that help in decision making? And so they're kind of aligned with us, but their focus is all on the weather and climate elements that go into farming.
And
So
you're incorporating that into this app?
It's in the app already. So what you would do is go to the weather section. I really wish I could screen share. I don't know why it's not letting me, but do one more effort here. Oh, hey, all right, I'm back. Here,
3 times the charm.
There we go. So it's in weather. Oh, it is my version. Let's see. Where's weather on here? Oh, it's down here. Sorry. There we go. Soil moisture right here. There you go. So you got 0 to 1 centimeter, 1 to 3, 3 to 9, 9 to 27, and 27 down to 81 centimeters. And there's your moisture content as meters cubed of liquid or water and meter cube of soil. So let us know if we've got the measurements right and things like that. Of course, we're always looking for feedback. But this is essentially, this is essentially it. We're on what, Thursday today? So this is a forward-looking one for 5 days. Let me see if I can.
Does anybody on the call have input on that? That has soil moisture probes or access knowledge of it? Some we can ruminate on, I guess.
Yeah, it's, you know, it was an easy ad for us. It didn't cost us very much money to do it. And we were like, let's throw it in and see if it's helpful. Again, ground truth that this is some experimental new technology, but it is been in development for a few years. And the guys that have put it out there, they continue to advance it. So basically, like, same thing with we were talking with the grain grading. Honestly, we're in talks with another company because we don't have chemicals on here, but we're in talks with another company for like, they have this device that you can use to, that we're going to be releasing sometime in the first quarter of this year, where you can scan plants in season to detect crop sicknesses and things that would require chemicals. So we kind of were thinking, hey, maybe that's a useful integration as well. If a guy, you know, wants to get a really quick, it's a 60-minute turnaround, and they use they use the University of Illinois plant and agronomy unit, their database, and pull that. So it's, again, new stuff. We're still talking with them, but we're always looking and scouring the market to see if there's new tools out there that help farms, and if we can deploy them on mobile for free, that's our game.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Like we've got somebody I'll be putting you in touch with. The company's called Gecko.
Mhm.
And have you heard of that company before?
No.
Okay, so what they'll do is they utilize map overlays, GECO,
Okay.
and they do map overlays on where problem weeds are, that kind of stuff, and they can get pretty seminal on where they can make scripts for you where you turn the spray booms on and off if you're putting an edge down, like a pre-emerge product and all this stuff. And when you look at an interlinkage of that, and then we take a look at what you're just doing, and they're also looking at doing a plant density score so that you can decide where you got to throw the fungicide on because it's going to go way better in your draws and stuff. And again, making the script so you can turn the thing on and off. It's really, really neat how this is all consummating in a real short period of time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it right now is accelerating because they're able to use big compute that's being developed for AI. So you've got a lot of mass compute in these new data centers, and you can deploy all that speed to process big information in real time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what our goal is with that stuff, because we've got it on our radar too. We're purely commercial, right? Like we just want to be a real simple access point to a broader market with good information. The most valuable piece of information that we can provide is a future price on the products traded on here.
Mm-hmm.
We are working on that. So the way that we're doing it, one of our partners is Grant Kosier, from the founder and former CEO of Global Ag Risk, and they have a subsidiary company called Parametrics. Parametrics has a grain yield prediction algorithm that gives us, with 99% accuracy, the yield on a field 6 weeks before harvest.
Mm-hmm.
That is really powerful stuff. And they do it using big data, plant densities, soil moisture, sunlight, all of these things, right? We've got a contract with them to use that information and bring it in here. And we want to, on our end, we're finding the information upstream on fertilizer. So we're going to be pulling manufacturer cost, oceanic freight costs, foreign exchange, river barge, transload, rail freight, truck freight, all the way down to the farm gate, and our current market price. And we're going to try and figure out if we can actually get a same kind of quality, same probability of prediction on the price of MAP, urea, etc. Now, that won't account for force majeure or Trump tariffs and stuff like that. But in a regular functioning market, we might be able to provide some insight on the market price that's coming from the supply chain way back 3 months behind us in time. And if we can get there, we believe that's the most valuable thing we can develop for a farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Any other questions, guys? Well, we've got Keith on the phone. For those that haven't yet, each of you should have in your text and your email the app download. You've got the iFarm Ag Group code just to initiate yourselves, and that gets you started. And I'm more than happy to spend whatever time you need just to get comfortable with it and whatever. But other than that, this has been a great call. We're actually a little past the hour, so my apologies for going a little beyond, but I think it was good, all great info.
Thanks for inviting me and letting me show you our business, guys. I think it's these are the kind of forums where we learn whether or not we fit the market, to be honest. And I take this information back and share it with my team, and we figure out how we can get another inch closer to being the preferred tool that people are using. So same thing on the app, you'll see our contact information on there. That comes through straight to me. So if you, we don't have any employees, I run the shop. So if you guys want to reach out at any time with questions, concerns, phone line goes straight through to me and I can help you.